What's going on, everybody? It's time to rank the top 10 personal favorite horror movies from 1982. What I do here differently from others on YouTube is I not only give you 10 of my personal favorites, but I'm going to give you 5 honorable mentions, and then I'm going to tell you the 5 worst movies I checked out this month, and I'm going to recommend an extra 10 in what I call my participation trophy little awards section, where I just kind of quickly give you up to 10 recommendations that are movies that are okay, at least. I'm not going to recommend a shitty one. So it's all personal opinion. So maybe something that I recommend will be shit to you, but that's okay. Everybody's different. So let's not bullshit any longer. Let's just jump right into this. Let's start with the bad stuff first. Let's just get all the negative talk out of the way and start with the 5 worst movies that I checked out this month. And I checked out over 40. I think I got 47. Some of them are debatable if they're even horror or not, but who cares? It's horror enough. If I say it counts, it counts. This is my list. So, what is the bottom 5, starting from 5 down to 1, 1 being the worst of the worst? Number 5 right now will be Manhattan Baby. This is a film by Lucio Fulci, and it is easily the worst one I've seen from him so far. It's got the kid Bob from House by the Cemetery, and there's only a couple of things that really stand out in this movie. There's a room of stuffed animals that come to life, like birds and shit, and they peck this guy to death, and they shoot a snake multiple times, which I thought was hilarious and very unnecessary to waste that much ammunition on a snake. And it's got the cheapest looking elevator set I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't connect with the family in this movie, couldn't give a shit about them if they lived or died. And it's got the typical ending that you would expect in an American horror film. The story is confusing, and there's just inexplicable scenes that just feel like they're thrown in, that go on for too long. The movie's boring overall. So, Manhattan Baby, number 5. Next up is a 3D movie done by Charlie Band, I think, and it is Parasite 3D. And this has Demi Moore. I think this was her first film that she ever starred in, and this has Stan Winston effects that are actually decent in the film, and that's really the only thing it's got going for it. And the acting overall is not as bad as I would expect it to be in a film like this. It's very low budget, and overall it just looks ugly. I don't like the setting. It's like in the future, but it's like the 90s. Every movie in the 80s that like went to the future always went into the 90s for some reason, and this one does that too. And their idea of the future is a desert with a Lamborghini and like laser pistols or some shit. It is just a badly directed film with just nothing entertaining about it. I was just bored. It's just got a bunch of one note characters. They throw in a gang of assholes that you just want to see die, and they don't meet satisfying deaths. And yeah, this has Richard Band as the composer, and usually he does a good job making music, but the music in this movie didn't stand out. So that was a first for him. But yeah, the story is just dull, and the movie is ugly looking and boring to me. So Parasite, don't recommend checking it out at all. Next up will be James Cameron's directorial debut, although I heard he got fired while making this movie, and that is Piranha 2, The Spawning, or in some cases, in certain trailers you watch, it's called like The Flying Killers, which makes sense because in this movie, the piranha fly. Yeah. You thought Piranha 3 Double D was ridiculous? Go watch this movie. It is tenfold way more ridiculous, but not even entertaining, which is just what holds this movie down so much, is that it's just, again, boring. It's just painful to get through. I was just so distracted while watching this movie. I couldn't get into it. I was checking my phone. This movie could not keep my attention. And the transfer was awful. And it's got Lance Henriksen in it, which they barely have him in it from what I remember. And what I will give this movie is that it's gorier than the original. So there. Next up is a movie called Humongous. This movie has a kick-ass poster. I really like the poster, and if I liked this movie, I would buy it in an instant. But unfortunately, this movie was a humongous waste of time. The acting is horrible. This movie rips off Friday the 13th Part 2 in one moment. This came out a year later. I'm not sure if they saw that movie and they were like, let's do that, because it clearly seems like they ripped it off. And if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there's no good setup for these characters. It's just like they instantly are thrown into the fucking island where they're all getting picked off slowly. Again, boring. Terrible transfer. I had to watch it on YouTube. There's not anywhere I could stream it from. There's no HD version that I found. The killer in this movie is supposed to be like humongous and deformed, and they never really show his face. So what's the point of setting up a character to be ugly and hideous and scary if you're not really going to show him? And he just grunts for like an hour straight. Just stop grunting. I hate that kind of shit. It always irritates me. There's zero gore, zero on-screen kills. There's just nothing here. I mean, there's a couple of little goofy moments where just things that were silly that made me laugh, like when the girl she thinks this guy's dying of hypothermia, so she quickly just takes off her top and gets on him. So at least this movie has some nudity, and this movie, like a lot of films in 1982, has rape in it. It opens up with rape and a dog saving the day. Oh my god, and this movie, for some reason, is so extremely exposition heavy for a film with, like, no plot. It's a very thin plot. It's just humongous guy who's the spawn of a rapist is on an island picking off these dumbasses one by one, and for some reason they got the characters for like 5 minutes straight trying to explain everything away. It's like, dude, we get it. We know what's going on. But the worst movie this month that I saw was Ghost Dance, a Native American slasher. It says 1980, but I also saw that it came out in 82. It was probably made in 80, but it came out in 82 from what I read. So I'm counting it. It was the worst one. It put me to sleep multiple times. Could not pay attention to this movie. There's a couple of decent kills in it, but nothing outstanding. It's just another boring, ugly looking film that just was not creative, not interesting, characters very forgettable, nothing to see here, so just don't waste your time with it. Ghost Dance was terrible. It has the actor from Creepshow 2, and that's the only person I recognized in it. Alright, now that all the negative shit's out of the way, let's go into my participation trophy awards ceremony where I recommend up to 10 films that are worth checking out but just missed my list. So, first up, A Stranger is Watching by Sean Cunningham. 3 years after Steve Pearson's wife Nina was murdered in front of their 11-year-old daughter, Julie, she and his new girlfriend Sharon Martin are kidnapped by the same killer. Imprisoning them in a bunker below Grand Central Station, he throws the police into a race against time to save the girls and catch the killer. Hospital Massacre. After making what should have been a routine visit to a local county hospital on Valentine's Day, divorcee Susan Jeremy finds herself detained for further observation. Meanwhile, a homicidal maniac disguised as a surgeon wanders around the hospital, killing all the staff members associated with her. Q by Larry Cohen. New York police are bemused by reports of a giant flying lizard that has been spotted around the rooftops of New York until the lizard starts to eat people. An out-of-work ex-con is the only person who knows the location of the monster's nest and is determined to turn the knowledge to his advantage, but will his gamble pay off, or will he end up as lizard food? The Slayer. Two couples along with a pilot become stranded on a rugged isle face off against a supernatural beast drawn to K, who dreams of its killings. Cat people. When zoologists capture a wild panther, Irina is drawn to the cat and the zoo curator is drawn to her. Soon, Irina's brother will have to reveal the family's secret, that when sexually aroused, they turn into predatory jungle cats. Extro. Tony's father Sam, abducted by aliens 3 years earlier, returns to Earth and seeks out his wife and son, but Rachel has since been living with Joe, and the reunion is awkward. Sam is not the same as when he left, and he begins affecting Tony in frightening ways. Next of kin. In a rest home for elderly people, a daughter reads her mother's diary. Soon events that are mentioned in the mother's diary begin to happen to the daughter. Alone in the Dark. A quartet of murderous psychopaths break out of a mental hospital during a power blackout and lay siege to their doctor's house. Silent Rage with Chuck Norris. A mentally ill man in a small Texas town goes on a killing rampage and is fatally wounded by police. When doctors use an experimental serum to bring him back to life, the killer develops superhuman strength and the town sheriff must pursue him. The Sender. A disturbed telepathic man is able to transmit his dreams and visions into the minds of the people around him. So there you go. Those are some that are worth checking out, but they weren't good enough to make my top 10 or even my 5 honorable mentions, but they're okay. Those are like 3-star movies to me out of 5. So, let's get into my top 10. What is my number 10? Number 10 will be The Entity with Barbara Hershey. Carla Moran, a hardworking single mother, is raped in her bedroom by someone or something that she cannot see. Could this be a case of hysteria, a manifestation of childhood sexual trauma, or something even more horrific? This movie is supposedly based on true events, and this one has Ron Silver, who was the doctor in Silent Rage, and it has two actors from Return to Horror High, and it's got Andy's therapist from Child's Play 2, so lots of recognizable faces in here. I thought the performances in this movie were really terrific, and the story also is just horrific to think about. To be a woman in her shoes, that's terrifying. And I love the Stan Winston effects in here with like her boobs being squeezed by the ghost. That looked pretty funny and pretty cool. I liked having Charlie Bernstein as the composer who did Nightmare on Elm Street. His music was very intense in this movie, but they kind of overuse it and it's a little jarring. They just you take this one cue and they use it like 1,000 times, but I still liked the music overall. This movie has some effects that age it, but nothing ages it worse than a room full of doctors smoking. This movie is a little too long. It should have been trimmed. It's like a little over 2 hours long. It didn't need to be that long. And the ending really has no closure, no answers. And that was a little disappointing, but still overall a good film. Number 9 will go to Superstition, aka The Witch. A witch put to death in 1692 swears vengeance on her persecutors and returns to the present day to punish their descendants. This one has Stacy Keach Sr. and it's got Buddy from Just One of the Guys. This movie has some great kills, some good gore. The opening kills are fantastic. I was not expecting to see any of this, and it blew me away. It has a very cool looking witch, like Reaper character towards the end. It's very atmospheric. The score was haunting. I just really dug the hell out of this film. It's got a downer of an ending. There's characters that die that you wouldn't expect to die. You would think that they would make it to the end. This movie is just freaking dark, atmospheric, and a hidden gem. I had never heard of this movie before, so I'm so glad I checked it out. There's not enough focus on the family that moves into this place that the priest is, trying to protect, but that's okay. I didn't really need to focus on them all that much. I just wish there was a little bit more focus on the family. I also really liked the dynamic between the priest character and the detective in the movie. They were really funny to me. Number 8 will go to Basket Case. A young man carrying a big basket that contains his deformed Siamese twin brother seeks vengeance on the doctors who separated them against their will. I really like the story of this movie. It's very corny as hell. It's very 80s, very low budget, and the effects in this movie are actually pretty good for its low budget. I really like the look of the twin in the basket, and the sounds that he makes are actually kind of creepy to me, and there's just lots of what the fuck moments in it. The tone is very bizarre. I love that character, the guy who runs the hotel, just how loud and pissed off he is throughout most of it. And the relationship between the main character and this woman at this doctor's office is very forced. I don't believe it for 1 second. I love just the grotesque design of Belial. I think that's his name. And yeah, it's just got a very gritty, sleazy atmosphere, and it's very 80s. So it's a low budget horror film that everyone should check out at least once. It's got 2 sequels, and I haven't seen them, so I can't say if they're good or not, but this is definitely a good movie to check out for fans of bizarre low-budget flicks. So check out Basket Case. And shout out to Justin Smith, who chose this as his favorite film from 1982. Number 7 will go to Amityville II, The Possession. Eager to start afresh, the unsuspecting couple of Anthony and Dolores Montelli, along with their 4 children, move into their dream house in Amityville. However, strange paranormal experiences shatter the Montelli's fantasy as the spirits of the dead open the unfathomable black portal of hell. This has Diane Franklin and Burt Young, and this movie just gets going fast. It's a very fast-paced movie. When they get there, shit just hits the fan almost right away. There's a lot of cool camera shots in the movie. I love the cinematography work in this film. A lot of the lighting, and there's lots of greens and just lots of colors. This feels like an Italian flick, and I think the director's a Spanish director, if I'm mistaken, correct me. But yeah, this feels like an Italian take on Amityville, and this movie is just it's got so much atmosphere, and it's got fantastic effects in it. The transformation, it turns into The Exorcist in the third act. There's a body horror effect in the movie that's just fucking phenomenal. I did not expect it to be this great. I'm so glad it made it in my top 10 because I wanted to talk about it. I did not see this movie before. This was my first time watch. It's got really good performances. It's got very unsettling things in it, like incest, very dark and disturbing, macabre tone to it. It just does not have any levity in the film. And how disturbing is Sonny's face when he's like transformed, when he's possessed. He's got that face that's all distorted and shit. Like, it's fucking creepy. Number 6 will go to a film that's just so bad that it's good, and that is Pieces. A frustrated Boston detective searches for the maniac responsible for mutilating a number of university co-eds. This is a Spanish film, I think, but it's very giallo. Like, the killer, it's straight out of like an Argento flick. You got the killer with the black gloves, the shiny weapon, the razor, the knife, the chainsaw this guy's using, all kinds of shit. He's chainsawing people. The tagline of this film, you don't need to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre. Hilarious. This movie just has gratuitous nudity, people fucking on college campus, outside, in the daylight, in front of everybody, like they don't give a shit. People just skinny dipping at a public pool, like no one's gonna walk by. The death scenes are hilarious. There is some poor editing in this film that just works to the film's charm. It just adds to it. Like the knife that hits her in the back of the head, and you clearly see the knife like bend in half, and they keep that shot in there. The Kung Fu Professor, what the fuck? That's the equivalent of Pancakes and Cabin Fever. I wouldn't doubt it if that was like inspired, because Eli Roth said that this was like his favorite slasher, so I'm guessing that's the inspiration right there for Pancakes. Just love the bad editing, the ADR. The most beautiful thing in the world is fucking on a waterbed and smoking pot at the same time. Oh my gosh, like horrendous acting. Oh my gosh, horrendous. It's just fun, unrealistic character writing. A college student somehow becomes like the lead investigator, like working for the police, and he's like telling them what to do, and they listen to him. It's fucking insane. Gory kills, lots of nudity, perfect slasher. Check it out. It's so bad you have to see it. Shout out to a patron of mine who chose this as his favorite movie, Nathan Malice. Nate. This is his favorite movie in 1982, and I see why. It is freaking fun. Now let's take a little break from my top 10 and talk about 5 quick honorable mentions. These movies barely made my list. They just got pushed off because of the other 5 movies I already talked about. So let's talk about my number 15, I guess. One of my 5 honorable mentions here, and that is The House on Sorority Row. I will say this movie is very well shot and directed for a smaller budget slasher flick. Like, this is pretty good. The performances are also very solid, and the leads in this movie, they went on to do other things like soap operas, and I think the final girl in this movie, she's great, and she went on to have a good career. The characters in this movie are very gorgeous. We got some nudity, not a whole lot, but we got some, so it checks that box. Doesn't check the gore box, though. For a slasher, you need to have gore. If the gore was in this movie, it would be freaking wonderful. But their kills are cutaway, and the ones that are kind of on screen, they cut away like very quickly. Once something like on screen, it just cuts away way too quick. There's no gore. The final chase should have been longer. It's too short and kind of uneventful. You got a drugged out final girl just hallucinating shit, which I thought was kind of cool, but it just needed to be more packed with tension and an actual chase. The killer's look, you don't see him throughout like the first hour and 10 minutes, and then the last 10 you finally get a look at his face, and then he gets in a cool ass jester outfit, which I wish he was wearing that the whole time. That was a mistake. He should have been wearing that the whole time. And this movie features one of the most unique weapons of choice for a slasher, and that is a walking cane with a sharp like feather of a bird at the end of it that he uses to slash people's throats and stab them in the face with. So yeah, like the outfit, like the music box theme in the movie, like a lot of stuff about it. Just wish it had gore, wish it had more of a chase at the end, and a better ending. So there you go. Number 14 will go to the shirt I'm wearing right now, Slumber Party Massacre. Perfect title for a cheesy, low-budget 80s B horror movie. This is just cheesy, good fun. Just like Pieces, this one is just very bad that it's good. it's got hilarious, like, bad dialogue, bad performances, and some goofs in the film, like mistakes that they made clearly that they just left in. The synth score in this movie is very 80s. I really like it. It's kind of catchy. The killer gives a kind of over the top performance with his face, like the faces he makes. And I like that one of the final girls at the end of this movie actually like takes charge at the killer and like faces him head on. Although she makes a couple of really dumbass decisions. This movie, it cuts to the neighbors way too much, and it cuts to the freaking coach lady unnecessary. Like, cutting to her at all until she shows up is unnecessary. It's filler. There's lots of filler here, lots of fake out scares and cat scares. Take that crap out. I don't want it. And the kills aren't all on screen. There's a little bit of gorier, but not enough to satisfy me. So, didn't make my list for those reasons. So, Slumber Party Massacre is right here. And shout out to username I am the best 237 who said that this was his favorite movie from 1982. Next up is Dario Argento's Tenebre. I've seen this movie 3 times now, and I don't think I'm gonna like it any more than I like it now. It's good, it's just not great to me. Everybody likes this one, they say it's the best Argento flick. Not in my opinion. But what I like about this movie is I like Argento's style. I really like some of the cinematography, that crane shot that goes like over the building. I thought that shot was pretty cool. It's very impressive, and I like the story that they're going for here. The whole author writing the book, and then some psycho who reads the book is like imitating what happens in the book and stuff like that. He's taking the pages and stuffing them down people's throats. There's a couple of cool, mean-spirited kills in the flick. I like that this movie does something different that I haven't really seen before in a slasher, where a main character kills the slasher, then you're the main slasher, and then somebody else takes that slasher's place. Like somebody else becomes the bad guy after that. So then there's like 2 killers. So I thought that was really cool. And some scenes could have been trimmed in this movie. I just feel like it's not very rewatchable, and it goes on a little too long for me. After the first killer gets killed, I feel like that's when the movie goes downhill for me. But then at the very end, it goes right back up. What a fantastic way to end a slasher movie. It's like something kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. It's like that level of like chaotic. It's just loud, lots of screaming, blood oozing out of a body. It's fucking awesome. But yeah, just get right everything like right before that, from where I said before, like when after the first killer gets killed, it just kind of goes down for me. But still a good movie. And shout out to Jeanette Spevek, one of my patrons who chose this as their favorite movie of 1982. Next is a movie that I want to talk about, even though it's probably not a horror movie, it's more thriller, and that is Class of 1984. I really like this movie. It's written by Tom Holland, directed by the guy who made Commando. In this movie, it's got all kinds of familiar faces. It's got an actor from Meatballs and My Bloody Valentine. It's got the daughter from Incubus, and all kinds of people. And all these teenagers look like they're 30, so I want to point that out. And it's got Michael J. Fox. Who could forget him? This movie seems like it's in an alternate reality that's way less grounded. Like, my big beef with this movie is that there's no way, with all the cameras that are set up in this place, that these kids could get away with the shit that they're doing. Like, this school sucks. And it just kind of irritated me. Like, they make these characters very unlikable, but at least at the end, they meet their demise, and it's very satisfying. It's a very cathartic third act. It's very intense. There's rape, just like in a lot of movies in 1982. It seems to be a theme. And it's even got the actor from The Clairvoyant, which is another movie from this year. And Roddy McDowall, he is freaking hilarious in this movie. I love his character in this movie. If I had to nitpick one more thing, I don't think the lead asshole in this movie, the lead gangster, is believable in that role. I feel like they should have hired somebody else. Like, this guy just not look like that type of character. Like, no. I just wasn't buying it. Last but not least, for my honorable mentions, is Lucio Fulci's The New York Ripper. This one has his style on full display. Lots of eye shots and lots of on-screen lingering gore. Eyeballs getting split with razors. It's got great cheesy-ass open with a dog fetching a severed hand. It's got a freaking broken bottle going up a woman's vagina. It is mean. It is gruesome. It's fantastic. It's got a scene that makes me cringe every time, involving a toe and a vagina. And this has to be one of the most sleaziest films I've seen, especially from Fulci. Like, there is just people fucking on stage. There's lots of tits and sex in this movie. Lots of it. I mean, if that's your thing, look no further than this movie. Couple of nitpicks here. Just like most Italian films, it seems, there's lots of plot conveniences. And also, the music was a little too jazzy for me. I wasn't a fan of the score, and it was really annoying in one scene, the way they used it. And before I go, who can forget that the killer in this movie quacks like a duck? All right, top 5. Let's get through this. I know it's a long video, but they're all going to be long because that's just my style. I want to talk about these movies. Number 5. What is my number 5 from 1982? That will be Friday the 13th, Part 3. An idyllic summer turns into a nightmare of unspeakable terror for yet another group of naive counselors? They're friends, not counselors. Ignoring Camp Crystal Lake's bloody legacy, one by one, they fall victim to the maniacal Jason who stalks them at every turn. The things I really like about this movie is that final act. When Jason gets the mask finally, and Richard Brooker is just throwing shit around that barn, that final act is very intense. It's my favorite final chase. It's one of my favorite final girls. It's got the hockey mask. I mean, who can forget that? It's got the hockey mask. It's got very creative 3D kills that are awesome. Lots of standout kills in this one. Some of the best in the franchise. And love the music by Harry Manfredini, of course. And Jason's look is awesome. This is when Jason becomes Jason. He's not Sackhead no more. He's not Hillbilly Jason. He is taller, meaner, and bigger. So I just love it. He's got the big shoulders, and it just looks more grotesque and deformed. I absolutely adore that. So the 3D does not age that well, but I think it kind of adds to the film's charm, though, at the same time. But yeah, it's kind of annoying when you're watching it in 2D and all this stuff like lingering in front of the camera. It kind of irritates me a little bit seeing it there and knowing that I'll never be able to see it in 3D, even if I do actually get a 3D TV with 3D glasses, because I'm blind in one eye, so that kind of just makes it impossible to see it in 3D. It has the weakest acting of the franchise, I will say that, in my opinion, and it's the slowest one of the franchise. Not a slow movie overall, but comparatively to all the other ones that are just super fast, this one feels the slowest in the second act before all the kills really get going. So yeah, it's just the characters are weak, acting, and like I said, the pace. So those things weigh this one down in my franchise ranking, but not in this ranking. Still adore it. Lots of nostalgia. I'll watch it again and again every year, every Friday the 13th. So there you go. Friday the 13th Part 3 is my number 5, and shout out to Alan J, who chose this movie as his favorite. Number 4 will go to Poltergeist. A family is visited by ghosts in their home. At first, the ghosts appear friendly, moving objects around the house to the amusement of everyone. Then they turn nasty and start to terrorize the family before they kidnap the youngest daughter. They're here. This movie has all kinds of iconic lines, iconic moments, scenes that really stuck with me, that were etched in my brain, things that just terrified me as a kid. The guy tearing at his face, the clown. Always was terrified of clowns and Pennywise and shit as a kid. This movie's just jam-packed in the last reel of it. Like when Tangina leaves, who's an iconic, awesome character, perfect for that role. Love the voice. When she leaves and she's like, this house is clean. Everything from that moment on is just like ramped up to 11. It's very intense and very satisfying. You only moved the headstones. Good actors in this movie, lots of familiar faces. And Tobe Hooper as the director, if he was, did a fantastic job, but some people say it was Steven Spielberg. It's just the perfect family horror movie. It's PG, doesn't really feel PG. It would be PG-13 today, I would bet. And yeah, it's just a very awesome haunted house movie. This has to be my favorite haunted house movie. It's a 5 out of 5, perfect film. Poltergeist is my number 4. And shout out to Guadalupe Martinez, who chose this one as his favorite. Number 3 will go to a movie that has really grown on me the last couple of years. I did not like it as a kid, and that is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Dr. Daniel Chalice and Ellie Grimbridge stumble upon a gruesome murder scheme when Ellie's novelty salesman father, Harry, is killed. The company's owner, Colin Cochran, wants to return Halloween to its darker roots using his mask and his unspeakable scheme would unleash death and destruction across the country. This movie is just fucking fantastic. I love it. It's got so much charm and rewatchability. Some people think it's slow, but I say you're crazy. Give it another watch. Who can hate Tom Atkins? Who cannot like seeing Tom Atkins as Dan Chalice banging a chick who's so beautiful, half his age? Cochran, the villain of this movie, is played beautifully sinister by whoever his name is. I didn't write his name down, but Tom Atkins, just a great, unique male lead, like a middle-aged guy who's like a scumbag cheating on his wife, or he's like divorcing her because he's banging all of his freaking coworkers at the hospital. Like, he's an asshole technically, but he's so likable and so charming at the same time. It's got very creative, unique kills. It's got quirky characters. It's got magnificent Dean Cundy cinematography. It feels like a Halloween movie. The story is very Halloween centric, way more than Halloween 1 and 2. It's got the perfect ending. It leaves it up for interpretation, and it's just awesome. Stop it. Stop it. I love that ending. I can't get enough of this movie. I really like it. And this movie actually kills kids. We see a kid have his head melted with snakes and crickets and cockroaches and shit coming out of it. Really macabre visual there. I just love the visuals, love the style of it. The score by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth, something like that. Awesome. Another great thing about it, like, it's just a fantastic score. There's some things that don't make sense plot-wise. There's some plot holes here that doesn't hold water. But whatever, you have to look past things. I have a lot of questions regarding the plot and what the hell's really going on and what? Stonehenge. But I just look past it. I enjoy the ride. It's so much fun. So Halloween 3 is my number 3. Number 2 will go to most people's number 1, and that is John Carpenter's The Thing. In remote Antarctica, a group of American research scientists are disturbed at their base camp by a helicopter shooting at a sled dog. When they take in the dog, it brutally attacks both human beings and canines in the camp, and they discover that the beast can assume the shape of its victims. This is a movie that I did not see as a kid. I saw it a couple of years ago, 2017, I want to say. And yeah, the big thing I'll compliment right now about this movie is the effects. Some groundbreaking shit, like effects that are so amazing that even to this day, it just seems like nothing's even topped them. And not that I've seen, but these are just absolutely phenomenal, absolutely amazing effects. I absolutely love the claustrophobic, isolated setting. Death is just surrounding them. They can't escape. It's the perfect setting. It's a very simple premise, too, with great characters. Just all male cast. That's unique, too. And you got freaking Kurt Russell. Love the guy as an actor. Love him in everything. The score by Ennio Morricone. I can't say the guy's name. What? You know exactly who I'm talking about. That score, just another iconic part of this film. Boom, boom. It just creates this sense of dread and like there's no hope. Another kind of open for interpretation ending at the end, very dark. And yeah, just can't say enough about this movie. It's fantastic. It's a 5 out of 5. Hardly any criticisms to the flick that I can come up with, so I won't talk any longer. I'll just say shout out to a few people who chose this one as their favorite, and that is Christopher Hollian and someone whose name is Aggressiver Stein, Chongo Chalupa, and Smaug. Those are their usernames. I don't know what their real names are, but there you go. 4 people, I think. 4 people chose this as their favorite. And finally, last but not least, my number 1, a movie I absolutely adore. I've seen it so many times within the last month, and that is Creepshow. A compendium of 5 short but terrifying tales contained within a single full-length feature, this film conjures scares from traditional boogeymen and portents of doom. This is a movie that I saw as a young kid, and it terrified me. There was always things in this movie that creeped me the fuck out. Just the skeleton at the window, that always gave me chills. The girl getting her head twisted around, the look of the zombie, the Tom Savini effects in this movie are absolutely fantastic. Some of his best. Day of the Dead, I think, is his best work, but I love his effects in this movie. To me, this is just the perfect anthology movie. It's my favorite one. And like Trick or Treat is a close second, but this one just has the perfect tone to it. Every segment is memorable and unique from one another. You got cockroaches, you got zombies, you got some meteor shit, quotable lines, some quirky characters in this one as well, and just so much fun. It's 2 hours long and it doesn't really feel like it. The only things I can nitpick in this one is the fourth segment, the crate, is a little too long, but I honestly can't really think of anything to trim out of it. So it's just longer than the rest comparatively. And the second segment is a little too silly compared to the other ones. Like, it's a silly film overall. It's a horror comedy, really. But the second one's way more comedy. It's more like, I don't want to say Freddy's Dead, but it kind of reminds me of it because he seems like a cartoon character in Freddy's Dead, and this Jordy Verrill guy seems like a cartoon character, like his face that he's making. It just seems cartoonish. But yeah, that's like nitpicky shit. I love the film, love the style, love George Romero's direction. They make it feel like a comic book. The transitions from scene to scene, they really make it feel like a comic book. And the blue and red lighting and stuff, I love that crap. Like, the stuff behind them when they're screaming, like, awesome. Just all that little stuff that really adds to the film. And yeah, I mean, you got fucking Tom Atkins. I just talked about him earlier. He's in this film, and for some reason not credited. Fantastic cast, fantastic movie. I don't want to blow this movie for too long. Creepshow is my favorite movie from 1982. And shout out to Steve Carney and James Moss, who chose this as their favorite. They are right. This is the best from 1982. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 favorite horror movies from 1982. And let me know what your top 10 is in the comments below. Let me know if you've even heard of all these movies. If I introduced you to new ones, that'd be cool to know if I did that to somebody. If I introduced you to a hidden gem that you didn't know about, I will let you know in the description box below all the other movies I watched, in case you're wondering, like, well, where was that movie? Did you even watch it? I'll let you know what movies I watched in the description box below. So yeah, there you go. Let me know what your favorite movie was. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button. I really appreciate it. And become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, Auf Wiedersehen.